At the family dinner, Olivia felt the laughter before she even heard it. Her sister's voice carried across the long table, light and cruel, mocking the idea that writing could ever be a real career. 20 relatives smiled politely, pretending not to see Olivia's face tighten as she kept eating, each bite tasting like silence. It wasn't the first time she'd been humiliated, but it was the first time she realized she no longer had the energy to defend herself. At 32, she had left her corporate marketing job to write full-time. The decision had been planned, not impulsive. She saved money, built clients, and earned modestly but honestly. Yet in her family's world, success was a ladder you climbed in heels, not words you built in solitude. They measured worth in job titles, bonuses, and car models, while she measured hers in truth told well. Her mother often said stability mattered more than dreams, but Olivia quietly believed that living a lie was the most unstable thing of all. That night, she went home in silence. The humiliation faded, but something colder stayed. 1 year later, fate would hand her a truth so large it would shatter every false measure they had ever worshipped. Olivia grew up in a house where worth was measured by the size of your paycheck and the firmness of your handshake. Her mother, Patricia, spent 30 years as a city clerk who believed in government pensions and safe choices. Her older sister, Victoria, became the golden child, a corporate lawyer earning over $200,000 a year with a corner office and a new BMW every 3 years. Every family gathering revolved around her victories. Patricia would raise her glass to another promotion, another award, another piece of proof that the family name meant success. Olivia was the quiet one, living in a small Brooklyn apartment with a second-hand desk and a stack of notebooks. She earned around $4,500 a month writing articles for online magazines and ghostwriting blogs for companies she didn't care about. Rent took $2,100, therapy $200 a week, groceries and bills ate the rest. There were no vacations or luxury handbags, just enough to stay afloat and a few good books on the shelf. She didn't complain, not even when her mother asked if she was still doing that writing hobby. At Thanksgiving, her essay about mental resilience was published in a regional magazine. Her mother barely looked up from carving the turkey, asking instead if Victoria's firm offered holiday bonuses. When Olivia mentioned the editor's praise, someone changed the subject to car leases. She smiled politely, the kind of practiced smile people wear when they stop expecting to be seen. That night, she washed the dishes while her family laughed in the living room. Their voices blurred together until they sounded like background noise. For the first time, she understood that being invisible in your own family cuts deeper than being criticized. At least criticism means they notice you. The letter arrived on a gray Monday, the kind of morning that felt too quiet to change a life. Olivia sat in a mahogany-paneled office surrounded by law books and the faint hum of an old air vent. Across the desk, Mr. Harrison, her late aunt's attorney, adjusted his glasses and slid a folder toward her. Inside were documents marked with numbers that didn't make sense at first. The total estate value read $333,478,000. For a moment, her pulse drowned out every other sound in the room. Aunt Margaret had always been a mystery, the eccentric sister who lived alone in Seattle and sent birthday cards years late. Olivia opened the handwritten letter clipped to the will. The handwriting leaned slightly to the right, strong and deliberate. To the only one who followed her heart, money is a mirror. It shows who people are when no one is watching. Live with courage, not permission. Olivia ran her finger across the paper, feeling the weight of its meaning. This wasn't just inheritance, it was a test of character left by someone who understood her silence better than anyone alive. Driving home, she didn't feel rich. She felt responsible. Every dollar was a reflection of how she chose to see people now. That night, she sat at her small kitchen table, the sound of city traffic drifting through the window. Instead of telling her family, she opened her journal and wrote out a plan. She would ask them for help with her therapy sessions, just $200. It wasn't about money, it was about empathy. She imagined the dinner, their faces, the tone of their voices. Then she took a small voice recorder from her drawer and tested the red light. She wanted to remember the truth, not their version of it. Before bed, she whispered into the quiet room that real wealth was not what you could count in a bank, but who stayed when you had nothing to offer. The restaurant smelled of roasted garlic and wine. Crystal glasses glowed under soft light as 20 relatives filled the private room with noise and laughter. Olivia sat near the end of the long table, hands folded in her lap, her voice recorder tucked quietly in her purse beside her. Her mother was at the head, glowing with pride as Victoria recounted another courtroom victory. Applause followed. Olivia clapped too because that was what she was supposed to do. The meal stretched into courses, stories, and the same pattern she had known for years. Success was celebrated, humility ignored. When the moment felt still enough, Olivia cleared her throat. The room softened into a polite pause. She told them therapy had been helping her manage stress, but the sessions cost $200 each. Her tone was careful, her words steady. She asked if anyone could help. The silence that followed felt longer than it was. Her mother looked at her with disbelief. Victoria smiled into her wine. Someone laughed quietly. Her uncle muttered that everyone had bills. Her mother said therapy was unnecessary, that strong people handled life on their own. Victoria suggested that maybe Olivia should find a real job instead of talking about her feelings. No one objected. No one asked how she was. The only movement came from Emma, who reached under the table and gave Olivia's hand a small squeeze. The warmth lasted seconds, but carried more weight than every word spoken that night. When dessert arrived, the conversation shifted to stocks and new vacations. Olivia listened, memorizing the cadence of their indifference. The recorder blinked faintly in her bag, capturing every laugh, every dismissal. She stayed until the coffee cooled and the room emptied, smiling just enough to appear fine. Driving home, she realized something simple and irreversible. What died that night wasn't love. It was the illusion that it had ever existed. The country club glittered with chandeliers and white orchids. 50 guests gathered around gold tables, their laughter rising over the string quartet. Waiters moved quietly between them, filling champagne glasses that caught the light like mirrors. Olivia arrived just as the speeches began, her dress simple but tailored, her posture steady. She carried herself with the calm of someone who had already faced the worst kind of judgment and survived it. Her mother spotted her and smiled, a performance polished by years of social training. Victoria stood beside her, radiant and sure of her place. The evening moved through toasts and practiced compliments. When her mother took the microphone to thank everyone for celebrating her 60 years of success and family, Olivia felt the moment settle inside her like a click of fate. She walked toward the stage with slow certainty and asked to speak. The guests turned, curious, expecting a polite tribute. Instead, Olivia introduced the lawyer waiting by the door. Mr. Harrison stepped forward, opened a briefcase, and began to read the will of the late Margaret Miller. The words hung in the air like a verdict. The entire estate, valued at $333 million, was left to her niece, Olivia Jane Smith. For a moment, no one breathed. A glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered against the marble. Her mother's face drained of color. Victoria blinked hard, her confidence breaking into disbelief. Olivia stood still, her hands clasped loosely in front of her. She didn't smile or speak. She simply let silence do what truth always does. The room shifted around her, the sound of money turning into meaning. When the applause never came, she felt a strange calm settle in. Power, she realized, never needed to raise its voice. The silence after the reading lingered like a held breath. Olivia stepped closer to the microphone, her voice steady but soft. She thanked Mr. Harrison for honoring her aunt's wishes and turned to the crowd. "This isn't revenge," she said. "It's clarity." For years she had confused love with approval and silence with peace. Today was not about winning. It was about ending a pattern. Her gaze moved across the faces that once judged her. They looked small now. Not because she had grown taller, but because she had stopped shrinking. She announced the creation of the Olivia Smith Foundation for Creative Minds, funded with $20 million to help artists who came from families that never understood them. Her tone was calm, factual, the language of someone who had done the math and found meaning in the numbers. She turned toward Emma and said her tuition and living expenses were fully covered. Emma's eyes filled, her hands trembling around her glass. Olivia told her mother and sister that money could not buy back empathy and that respect would always be the only currency that mattered. Mr. Harrison stepped forward once more, explaining that the inheritance was protected under state law. Any interference or coercion would result in legal action. His words landed gently but firmly, closing every door that used to lead back to guilt. Olivia listened to the faint hum of the room, the sound of pride collapsing into disbelief. Then she let the silence grow again, this time by choice. The tension lifted, leaving only stillness. She felt no triumph, only relief. It was the peace of knowing she had finally chosen herself. For the first time in her life, that was enough. The days after the party felt like a different lifetime. The story spread quickly, slipping through social circles and offices like smoke. Victoria lost her promotion within a week. Her firm cited reputation concerns, but everyone knew it was because the video of her mocking Olivia had reached the partners. Their mother became a cautionary tale among her friends, the woman who built her image on success only to be undone by her own pride. Olivia didn't respond to any of it. She stayed silent, letting the noise fade on its own. Instead, she poured her time into the foundation. Each application she read felt like a reflection of her younger self, someone who just needed one person to believe in them. The work gave her structure again, sleep returned, anxiety lifted, and her writing flowed with the clarity she thought she had lost forever. When her literary agent called to confirm a book deal worth $2.4 million, she felt gratitude but not surprise. The book, titled The Price of Peace, wasn't about wealth. It was about boundaries, empathy, and the cost of silence. Her days became quiet by choice. Morning coffee, foundation meetings, therapy, and writing filled the hours once wasted on explaining herself to people who never listened. Months passed before a letter arrived from her mother, written in careful handwriting. Patricia wrote that she was in therapy now, beginning to understand her own cruelty, asking for nothing but acknowledgement. Olivia read it twice, then folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. She felt no anger, only acceptance. Understanding, she realized, was not the same as reconciliation. That evening, she walked through her new home, the sound of her footsteps echoing softly against the hardwood floor. No voices, no criticism, no tension, just peace. She opened the window to let in the night air and smiled to herself. For the first time in years, the silence was not empty. It was freedom. Olivia stood in her living room, the evening light stretching across the floor. On the wall hung Emma's painting, a woman standing in sunlight while shadows reached for her feet. The title read, "Choosing the Sun." Olivia studied it in silence, realizing the woman in the painting was her. Not because of the wealth or the victory, but because she had finally learned to stop living in the dark. She thought about how walking away had once felt like defeat. Now it felt like discipline. Family, she understood, had never been about blood. It was about the people who show up when you have nothing to give. Peace, she realized, was not a prize you win. It was a boundary you protected. The money had changed her circumstances, but self-respect had changed her life. To anyone watching, she would say that silence can be strength and distance can be healing. You are not cruel for protecting your peace. You are wise for choosing it. If you have ever had to stand alone to defend your values, you are not lost. You are becoming who you were meant to be. And that, more than anything, is real wealth.